Now let's talk about the projects area and the configuration for projects. So I'm going to navigate to the projects setup configuration. And notice there are two tabs. I now have a project configuration tab and a time configuration tab. So on the project configuration tab, this top area should be preset, but make sure all of the items are moved over to the right here. Project and resource management, you're not going to use. Document numbering, we like to have the project ID, the cost code ID, and the project contract ID blank, because usually people like to give their projects a number that they assign. They also like to give the project contract the same number as the project. Okay, so when you're creating reports, you're using the dashboard, it's very helpful to use the same project number, the same as the project contract ID. Okay, cost codes are going to be how you use cost codes. So you might have like an 01-000 structure, or you might have 4 digits after the dash. So you get to type in your own cost code numbers. So you don't want to sequence those generally. Project estimate's the same thing as the project ID. You don't want to sequence it. You want to use the project ID on the estimate ID field. We're going to go down here to change management. Change management sequencing is an internal sequence number. So these will not necessarily be the ID that you're going to show or the number that you're going to show to the owner or the architect or the customer. This is an internal sequence number, an internal transaction ID number. Okay, so just to clarify that, so we want to sequence those generally speaking. Now, some people do decide to type in their own change request and change order numbers. They might use the job number -01, the job number -02. But you can do that in the external reference number in change requests and change orders. So if you prefer, you can take these out and do your own IDs for those sequences. The financial summary account group, that is something that is on a tab on the project screen, which I'll show in a minute. We generally don't use this tab because you're going to use your dashboards, your reports, or other areas to get this kind of information. Okay. Down here, we've got dimensions filled out. So those should look just like that. Generate invoices, you should have nothing checked there. Integration options that say Intacct on both. And then your display options for the project screen, we're going to display these tabs only. Okay, so we're not using this. This is an old tab that's no longer used. And this is that project summary tab I was telling you that we generally do not like to use. We don't like to use this tab. Okay, so I'll explain that and show that in a minute. And then your WIP area. So for best practice approach, you want to include your cost of goods sold accounts that are set up in your best practice approach. So you've got the 501 to 50600 cost to sales accounts here. So that's going to be all of the cost accounts that you're going to code projects to. You've got the billings account here. You've got costs and excess account. You've got your change in your costs and excess. So that's an income statement cost account. Got your liability for billings and excess. Your revenue account for the change in billings and excess. And then you've got your WIP journal here as well. So on your WIP journal, you're going to have, if it's not listed, you can click add, and it's as simple as WIP J, WIP J. You just type both right there. And then generally speaking, people reverse the WIP entry at the beginning of the next month. Okay, so that's what that means there. Okay, so that is a good setup for your project configuration. The time configuration tab here is going to be covered in the payroll configuration section. Okay, so we're going to hit save here. And now I'm going to navigate back to my project menu. So quick overview of the project area. So we've got a setup tab here. We've got such things as customers, employees, item groups. Now these are set up and these are in the AR area. They're in the time and expense area for employees. Item groups are in purchasing and order entry as well. So it's just another quick link to get there. So I'm not going to cover these. Those are covered in other sections of our content. Project groups is a way to group your projects. For example, I want to group all of my hotel type projects, all of my restaurant type projects. I want to group them and report on them on a dashboard or financial report. That's what grouping is. So anywhere you see grouping, I can do a customer type group. So if I have service type customers or industrial type customers. So on the customer type, on the customer record, I can do groups there. So grouping is all over the system. And that is here, project grouping is used pretty heavily. Okay. So I've got some status and types. So my project types are going to be such things as hotel, school, retail, restaurant. Here's just examples. You can make those whatever you want. This is a custom status you can put on projects to help prevent cost entries from hitting the project if it's close to the end. We've got cost codes, cost types. So we set these up and go through this with you when you're sending over your master files of your lists of your cost codes, your customers, your vendors, GL accounts. That's all done in the data area of our content in our planning session. So those should already be in. So here's your cost codes right here. Okay. And cost types for the best practice approach, your standard cost types. And your standard cost types for our best practice approach will have those 6 cost types: equipment, labor, material, sub, other, and potentially overhead. Okay. So project estimates, the types of estimates should be already pre-configured and set up, but those are there. And then you've got your change management types. So you might have an internal, a contingency type of change request. You might have an external one that goes out. So you can set up different types here. And then we've got some more areas we cover later on. So we cover all of this in detail later on in workflow classes, but I just want to point out the setup menu here. So on the All tab, we've got projects, we've got WIP management, you've got some change management, how you invoice for projects is in here, and you've got your project contract set up. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the projects tab. We're going to cover all this in workflow classes in more detail. So I'm going to hit the projects tab though and explain some of that configuration that I was talking about. So I'm going to go down actually to an entity level. So we've got some more projects here, and I'm going to edit one of these projects. So on the configuration I just went through, I type in my own project number. Okay, so let me show that a little bit better by hitting the add button. So when you click add, instead of it saying new, like it's going to sequence on its own, you can type in your own number. Okay, because I've taken that automatic sequence out. So 22002, we're going to look at this one filled out. So you type in the name next. Usually this project category is contract. There's a lot of this we go over in workflow, so I'm not going to belabor this, but this is a typical screen that's filled out. The tabs up here at the top are the tabs in the configuration that I was selecting to display. So there's one for project summary, and there's one for resources and billing that we hide. Everything else we like to display here. As you get going in the system and you add things to your project, you add cost codes, you add estimate, you make some commitments, so subcontracts and POs. All of this is housed on this project screen so that you can easily navigate to these things in the system. Now you can go to those areas and find your subcontracts, your POs in purchasing, for example, but it's easy to navigate right to the project and see these types of records right here. And then you can click on it and get right to that subcontract and its related invoices as well. Okay. So here would be those related invoices. Now it gives you a quick snapshot of your totals for those commitments as well. Okay. Change management and change orders, change requests, a contract to my owner, and invoices that I've billed to the owner. So again, everything that's green is drillable and you can pull up that screen. Also, don't forget, you can duplicate projects. So if you have a similar project, you can hit the duplicate button and it will fill out a lot of the information for you on the main tab. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the projects area and the configuration of projects.